Good evening, everyone. I'm Scott Duddy, Director of Admissions at Dexter Southfield. We will get going shortly as people settle in from far off locations this evening. We thank you for joining us for this call. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Scott Duddy, Director of Admissions at Dexter Southfield. We'll give it one more minute as people settle into their seats for this evening. Thanks again for joining us. Well, third time is the charm. Thanks again for joining us. I am Scott Duddy, Director of Admissions at Dexter Southfield. We greatly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us on this call this evening. You have been welcomed into this evening's call in webinar format. So those of us on the panel will be the ones that have to suffer under the bright lights of Zoom. We look forward to engaging with you over the course of this evening. Please use the question and answer button at the bottom. As the moderator, I will be feeding questions to our panelists over the course of this evening. This is meant to be an interactive experience, but also meant to bring you back to the high level of Dexter Southfield. And the language of tonight's call, 3 divisions, 1 vibrant community, is meant to remind you that that word division, while it does allow us to zero in and individualize the experience and age-appropriate metrics, does highlight a divide. And at Dexter Southfield, we talk about that one vibrant community, that cohesive experience, that consistent 14-year framework that my colleagues work so hard to create, knowing what is age appropriate as we continue to set levels of expectation and help students strive for excellence over the course of their journey at Dexter Southfield, individualizing the approach and coming down on the level with them. So over the course of this evening, you will hear about the heart of Dexter Southfield's academic program and our belief in learning by doing. That we have a long history of academic excellence, and our proven model combines academic traditions in an innovative teaching and learning style. One might say modern blooms of education born of traditional's roots. As you visit Dexter Southfield, and again, we are open for visits, we invite you to take the opportunity to come for a campus tour and interview, or continue to zoom in these segmented virtual experiences. I do feel it's important as the Director of Admissions to highlight that all of this is working towards a January 15th application deadline. And speaking to the families and the students on the call, this is a journey. This is a journey of self-reflection, a journey of learning to decide what it is that you're looking to accomplish and how Dexter Southfield can partner with you on that journey. So over the course of this evening, you're going to hear from our division heads as they reflect upon their role in helping shape the growth and development of the students that live the Dexter Southfield experience on a daily basis. So coming in at a high level and knitting together these 3 divisions, I thought it'd be helpful to frame out the Dexter Southfield experience, starting at the culminating end of your career, that 9th through 12th experience, and framing it on the high school's vision of formation. This is a time where you're forming your ideas, you're developing a sense of who you are and where you're going. I can't put it any better than Dr. Bloomfield, our head of the upper school, as he talks about consuming ideas and creating content. That through a versatile academic program that's responsive to students' interest in emerging challenges of the world, our students master essential skills. They gain genuine enthusiasm for scholarship and become co-creators of their education. I've heard Dr. Bloomfield say time and time again, as he's challenged our students, that this can either be a school you go to or this can be your school, challenging them to take ownership, to develop relationships, to continue to think outside the box as they solve the problems of the next phase of their life, and really gazing beyond the walls of the Dexter Southfield experience and thinking about how their knowledge gained applies to the careers that they're going to lead in the future. As we move down a level into the middle school, grades 6 through 8. It's a time of transition, a time of foundational skill development, moving into a model of executive functioning and carrying that toolkit with them from class to class, about exploring the independence and discovering new opportunities. And as Todd Fawcett, our head of the middle school, is quoted, we think about that whole child. One of the ways that we do this is by allowing the child the opportunity to try so many different things. We don't put them in that box. Instead, we expect them to challenge themselves, exploring through arts, athletics, and those relationships. And again, this will be a common theme that you hear us touch upon tonight, is those relationships, peer to peer, but also student to faculty, faculty to faculty, because again, the defining characteristic of community is not just people inhabiting a shared space, but really deepening those relationships and continuing to feed that on a daily basis. And last, but certainly not least, as we get down to that foundational experience, those first half of that 14-year runway, the pre-K through 5 window, it's that foundational experience, developing that firm foundation on which our students will operate. And that as the students enter the main doors of the GUI building, they look down through the glass in the Reading and Learning Center, and they see themselves. They see themselves reflected back in a variety of different experiences, in a variety of different spaces, developing relationships, developing confidence, and learning to explore the space and make it their own, to develop those formative skills that will take them all the way back up to that top level. So with that being said, I'm thrilled to welcome our panelists onto the call here this evening. Dr. Marlena Alex, our head of the lower school, Mr. Todd Fawcett, our head of the middle school, and Dr. Brian Bloomfield. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us here this evening. Over the course of this evening, I'll channel the questions to you. With that being said, Dr. Alex, I'd love to turn it over to you and allow you to introduce yourself and framing out your division as part of that 14-year journey.
Thank you, Scott. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's really so nice to see such a full Zoom. So I'm Marlena Alex. I am the head of the lower school at Dexter Southfield. This is my 3rd year at Dexter Southfield. And as I think about what Scott was sharing, I sort of think back to my own Dexter Southfield why. So what was it that drew me to Dexter Southfield, and what is it that keeps me coming back day after day and excited to be there and work with my faculty and my students. So I was drawn to the foundational program. We believe that children need to walk before they run. We believe they need to learn to read. We believe they need to learn how to do math before they learn to apply those skills. So that was something that really drew me. I was also drawn to the strong compass of the school. I feel like we know who we are and what we do well, and we also believe in right from wrong. We believe that character matters. We believe that good habits matter. We believe that civility matters. Those were things that spoke to me quite loud when I visited, and that I see every day in our students and in our program. I really also enjoy this incredibly cool, I'm going to just use that word, the way we have it, I guess the structure, that we are a single sex, at least in the lower school, we are a single sex program, 2 single sex programs, a boys program and a girls program within a co-ed school. And as we grow through middle and to upper being a fully co-ed program, I think it's very unique on the landscape. I also love the pre-K to 12 runway. The fact that a student can come to us at 4 years old and graduate at 18 or 19 or 17, I'm not sure what they are, but I think it's somewhere between 17 and 19. And they can be in one school and have one experience within 3 divisions, and even within that sort of mini. So in the lower school, we have a building for pre-K to 2, and then they sort of graduate to 3 to 5. And then when they're sort of feeling like that constraint, now whatever they're feeling that they're kings of the hill, they move to middle school and are bottom of the ladder, and then they move back up, and then they go to upper school. And so I think it's great that we can have a coherent, though different experience for students. So I think I will turn it over to Todd Fawcett for his rendition or his version.
Thanks, Marlena. That was great. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And for me, It's really been an interesting journey coming to Dexter Southfield. I'm also in my third year. I'm originally from Massachusetts, and when my children were younger, my wife and I came to Dexter Southfield as prospective parents and kind of took a look at the school, and we're really excited about it. And then I got a job that was really far away. So I moved overseas, did some work there, and then a number of years went by and I saw that there was a position open, and was really excited to come back and to work at the school and to learn more about it and to become part of it. So that was why I decided to be here. It's been an amazing 3 years. We have a phenomenal middle school. We have an amazing team put together. And I think, as Marlena was saying, the K-12 experience is a really special one. It is really different in each division, but those pieces go together in a transitional way in middle school. So in the lower school, you're looking at sort of individual self-contained classrooms with one teacher teaching all subjects. In the upper school, you have a fully departmentalized model. And how do you get from A to B? And the answer is middle school. So we have structures in place to make it feel like a very small grade level experience, but it opens up some social pieces for students. So there's more interaction between different children in different classes. We have a club structure, so kids get to exercise some choice about their learning. We have athletic offerings, and they have to decide what sports they want to pursue, but yet there's many different offerings that they can choose from, and changing your mind is encouraged. So we want kids to try a lot of different things so that they can find their passions, so that when they are ready to move on to the next level, they're ready to jump in and show what they can actually do. So in the middle school, that's kind of what we're trying to do, is we're trying to move kids from a self-contained program to a multidisciplinary program in a really coherent and smooth way. We're trying to expand their social circle, and we're trying to have them be a part of the educational process. So I think with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Bloomfield.
Thank you, Mr. Fawcett. So the upper school at Dexter Southfield is a 9 through 12 traditional high school model. And I was thinking about what Marlena said about what drew her to Dexter Southfield, what makes it a special place. When I first came to Dexter Southfield 4 years ago, I was understanding I was taking over a division that was the youngest of the three. Dexter Southfield was formed in 1926 and was a K-8 boys school for a long time, became a girls school in 1992, but the upper school didn't come around until 2003. So although we are the oldest students in the school, we are actually the youngest division. We're the baby of the group. And as a baby that's moved into its adolescence, the upper school has found different iterations of who it is. When it first started in 2003, it probably resembled a middle school for bigger kids. But now in its articulation in its 18th year, I'd like to think that we just graduated our first upper school student, 18 years old. I think we've really come into our own as a world-class upper school. And what I'll highlight for you there, just one thing, is what Scott Duddy opened with in the beginning about the idea of formation. What I tell the students when they come into high school, when I tell the parents when we meet about these evenings, is that most students have been told throughout their lives by parents, by teachers, by aunts and uncles, that they have a lot of potential. They're really smart. They can do a lot of things. High school is a time where we put potential behind us and we start actually talking about what you can do. We talk about what you can write, what you can think, what you can sing, what you can create with your hands, what you can actually do, and understand that keeping in sync with the school's motto, best today, better tomorrow, what we ask is that all of us, teachers, students, staff members, we come together every day to do our very best at everything we do. If you got an 85 on a test, then if that was the best you could do on that test on this day, then that was your best. And then we focus on how can we do better tomorrow. So this is about what you can do. It's not about your potential and it's not about your future. The phrase that I don't really like my faculty using is when you get to the real world. To a 16-year-old, life in high school is as real to her as my life is to me now in middle-agedom. This is the real show for these kids. They work very hard. They go to 6 classes. They have 7 periods a day. They're involved in sports. They're involved in clubs. They're involved in community service opportunities. They're helping each other. They're being role models to younger students on buses and in walkways. This is their real life. We take it very seriously. We try to help students to reach, to stretch, to push themselves a little bit farther than they thought they could go, knowing that we're here to support them and hold them, helping them realize that when they stumble, when they fall, when they fail at something, failure is just a part of learning. It's the best part of learning, and we're here to help them to pick themselves up and try again to do better tomorrow. That promise of what the upper school was designed to be, even before there was an upper school in Dexter Southfield, is what drew me here. It's what keeps me going every day. It's what keeps my faculty pushing every day. And I hope you'll be able to get some questions answered about how it works tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Brian. You sparked a question that came up before we started the call here, as far as the role that you three play in the institution and the relationships that you have with one another, but also how you work together to chart that overall curricular path, but life path. And knowing that we're tasked with that 14-year runway, but also preparing students for that uncertain future that lies beyond. Brian, maybe if I could throw it to you to start to that discussion about that curricular roadmap that we map out across those three divisions, and how you guys work together as a team.
Sure. So in schools, we develop documents which we call scope and sequence documents. And scope and sequence, they have two directions. They have a horizontal direction, which is what's happening for your 4th grade child, for your 8th grade child, for your 12th grade child across all of her classes. And then there's a vertical articulation. What happens in math as you move from 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8. And so we have constructed these documents together. Our staffs have built them individually, and then we work together on the transitions. And we focus on two different areas: the content that the students are learning and the skills which they need to acquire in order to learn and produce and be confident in those. So that pre-K through 12 scope and sequence of skills and content, which was a whole mouthful of education gibberish. Those documents, they don't bind us. They don't keep a teacher from being able to pivot when a teacher in 4th grade or 11th grade or 7th grade, when she sees that a student needs a little extra help with something or wants to delve further because he's really fascinated, those documents don't keep us from working with the kids in front of us, but they help us to know that when I'm working on multiplication skip counts in 2nd grade, I know that that's going to, as a 2nd grade teacher, I know that I'm feeding into the eventual goal of AB calculus for 11th and 12th graders, that foundational work is actually leading to something. In the upper school, we know that we can't do the amazing things we ask kids to do. We can't ask them to stretch themselves without the firm foundation and the growth that comes in the lower and the middle school. And so our teachers know that. They know that even though upper school tends to be a bit flashier, our kids are louder, they're bigger, they can speak more eloquently because they're older. Some people always think of the upper school as the ultimate articulation of what a school does, but these documents, this work that we've done together in divisions, it helps all of our teachers and I think the three of us to know that all the work we do feeds upon one another, and no one's going to be successful without one another.
Todd, maybe if I could work my way down to Marlena through
Sure.
you, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I think Brian touched on some curriculum documents and things like that, and these are living documents that our teachers work on all the time. So just the other night, we had a group of 8th and 9th grade teachers sitting in a meeting at 6 o'clock at night and talking about teaching and learning and how they can do it better. And one of the really interesting moments was the 8th grade teachers are preparing 8th graders to take their first semester exams. So 8th graders take these exams similar to what they'll see in high school, but the focus is really different. So rather than in 9th grade, you have an exam where you're trying to demonstrate knowledge, and that's the ultimate test of whether or not you have learned everything in the semester that came before it. In the 8th grade, the focus is really, how do I take a test? How do I prepare for that kind of an exam? And our academic support team has developed a protocol for that. They explained it to our 8th grade teachers who are going to implement it. And it was great to have the 9th grade teachers at that same meeting, hearing how that's going to work, so that when they see a 9th grader coming in, they know that those skills are in place. They understand that this isn't the first time that the student has attempted this type of work, and it can really kind of move very smoothly into a opportunity for a student to demonstrate their knowledge, what they can do, as Dr. Bloomfield put it. On the other end of the spectrum, we had 5th and 6th grade teachers working together. We have some really wonderful coordination happening in our science department, in our English department, in our math department. And all of those pieces are there so that teachers can communicate back and forth between the divisions to tell each other what is working, where kids are excellently prepared, where they could do better, how we can improve. And it just falls into our motto of best today, better tomorrow. So we look at everything that way. And it really is a fun place to work. And I get to work with these 2 wonderful division heads and bounce between the 2 of them. So it's a lot of fun for me.
I was going to say we the 3 of us really do have a ball working together. So I consider myself very lucky to work with 2 such wonderful educators. I also think that there are lots of aha moments. And so Todd and Brian spoke about the sort of formal moments that we have. And in fact, actually 2 years ago, Todd Fawcett and I and our divisions chose a new math program that's a K-8 math program so that we would make sure that we have that through line. And those more complicated named math courses actually rely on students to know math and being able to manipulate numbers in ways that maybe weren't happening before or that had different opportunities. And bringing this new math program that I always say teaches the kids to learn math from the inside out, like the whys and hows and how numbers interact and all those things. That's happening now so that when students get to algebra and geometry, and as I said, all those named math courses, they have those skills, and that's super important to their success there. But when I speak about those unofficial times, we're on a 35-acre campus, but the academic buildings are in sort of one zone. 36-acre campus, sorry. But the buildings are in one zone. So literally we are a driveway apart. And our faculty are on buses together. They're on fields together. At least middle and upper school are eating in the same dining hall. We have faculty who have children in each of the divisions. And so there's a lot of cross-pollination and cross-communication that happens even just in passing. And I would say that does not happen typically at schools our size. And that is really unique, and I think to the benefit of our students and our curriculum.
Marlena, I've heard you say before that roughly 80% of the curriculum walks in the door on a daily basis at the lower school, and it's important to meet the students where they are. But then as we talk about that and elevating levels of expectation, helping them work to excellence, however we define it, how does the intentional broad-based participation and really the learning by doing, what does that all mean? How does that apply to that growth and development as we prepare the students for that next step, whatever that next is?
So the broad-based participation, at least in lower school, there aren't any electives. You can't say, hey, I'm not going to go to music class, or no, thanks, I don't think PE is going to be it for me. Our students in lower school participate in art, they participate in music, they participate in drama, they participate in sports. In sports, they play 11 sports in 3rd through 5th grade. They all take Spanish. It's one curriculum that students all participate in. And then within the classroom, we're very fortunate. We have between 12 and 17 students in a class, which means that a teacher can have different groups and different levels and can do things within the classroom that, as Scott said, really meet the children where they are. We know that students learn in uneven ways across a curriculum and even within themselves. And so we're able to, within the structure, make sure that students have what they need to learn. If we need to pull them out to do a little extra review, that's great. We're able to do that if we need to give them some more enrichment and some extra work that stretches them, usually sideways, because if you stretch them up, then you're impacting the next grade. But to stretch them sideways to give them a deeper understanding of the curriculum, we're able to do that because you can do that in a small school.
So that's similar to what we do in middle school. And I would agree. I think a lot of those moments that are just organic are great. When I think of it being a K-12 school, seeing former students that are now in the upper school and they're headed into their junior year, even a lot of them coming in as tour guides coming through the middle school, and just seeing them being, almost adults is really impressive when they're kind of locked in my head as a sixth grader permanently. So it's just this wonderful sort of pastoral piece of our work where we get to see kids grow up, and that's a really wonderful thing. So that's what's nice about the K-12 model, is they don't go away. They're there, and you have a relationship with them and their family, and their siblings, their parents, and you meet their grandparents at Grandparents' Day. We make those relationships with the whole family, and it's a partnership as these kids grow into themselves. And we just want to, help them do that to become the best version of that they can be. So I think that's for me what's wonderful about this. We all have a lot of different jobs, and one of the jobs that I have is I run a crosswalk at the end of the day, and just about every single lower school student comes across this particular crosswalk. So I get to say goodbye to the entire lower school every day, which is really fun. And as those kids, they start to know me, and then they're in sixth grade all of a sudden, and they're like, "Hey, I thought you just ran the crosswalk." So it's this neat moment where kids see you doing more than they would expect, or seeing people taking on different roles. And when that happens with all of the adults around them, they start to understand that everybody is doing everything they can to help them grow into being a better student, being a better athlete, being a better person. And they see their parents helping at the school. They see, the custodial staff there year after year. All of that adds up to a really great proposition for learning. So I was just about to pass it off to Dr. Bloomfield, but I can just keep going.
Todd, I will share that crosswalk goes directly below my office window, so I hear the joy of the lower school students every day, and I wish I could be out there as opposed to looking at spreadsheets. So I envy you in that regard.
Did you hear them singing to Todd today? I couldn't hear exactly what the song was, but as they walked by, they were serenading you.
Yes, I did hear that, absolutely. And there's a number of high fives that happen, and good afternoons and thank you and have a nice day. And it's just our entire staff does this kind of thing as the students arrive on campus as well. So it's good morning, how are you today? Very well, thank you. And just if a student has that interaction every single morning, it becomes a reflex. It becomes built into them as a part of the person that they are. And that's a kind and polite person who's looking you in the eye and having a conversation. So it's more than just the curriculum. It's helping kids grow and become really nice people. So, all right.
And Brian, knowing there's a different level of, as we start to help students to think about owning their future, what that broad-based participation means at the high school level. So I'd love to hear your answer on that question as well.
I'm trying to frame it because I really love listening to the two of you talk. Broad-based participation in high school. What it means is that, as Todd Vincent, our head of school, is fond of saying to kids, we have a wide menu. We expect students to show up every day and engage. You're going to take your core classes in ninth grade. Everyone takes English for 4 years. People take history, they take math, they take science, they take a language. Everyone expects that. They'll take art and finance and performing arts. But beyond that, we don't just expect you to take your classes. We expect you to work in your classes. We expect you to choose your classes. We expect you to choose your partners and collaborate. We expect you to choose. We have 42 active clubs this year. All of them meet at different times during the school week, not after school, not on the weekends, except for exceptional opportunities, so everyone can participate in them. 70% of my students participate in organized sports at Dexter Southfield every season. We have students who run and participate in the music program. We have students in the theater production. We have a production going up this week that they've been working on for 2.5 months. Clubs, sports, activities, music programs, classes, elective classes, community service opportunities, leadership opportunities, student council, prefects of our houses. We have 8 houses in the upper school, which houses, no pun intended, all of the upper school students in 9 through 12, family operations, and we have student prefects who are leaders of those. We expect you to show up and try. We expect you to show up and dig in. We expect you to put your best foot forward. We don't expect you to be someone that you're not. If you're an extrovert and you like to get in front of the room and shout, then get in front of the room and shout. If you're an introvert and you're shy and you don't like to do that, then don't do that. We're trying to help you to grow, to find the best version of who you are, not turn you into a version of the person next to you or your parents or anyone else in the world. We take the time to get to know our students through the work we do together, through the conversations we have together, through the advisory program we have together, through the house program we have together, on teams, in plays, in the art studio. We spend time to have conversations to get to know kids, to find out what they're doing on their weekends, how their game went last night, how they're recovering from their injury. We do those things because the relationships that we build with them encourage them to engage in their classes, in the field, in the studio, and the stage. And they know that we're actually interested in seeing them succeed. And succeed doesn't mean getting A's in everything. Succeed means try. Succeed means push yourself. Succeed means, as Todd Fawcett said, try something. If it doesn't work for you, awesome, try something else. High school is a time to find passions that you can pursue for the rest of your life. I don't expect 14-year-olds to know who they want to be when they matriculate to the high school. That would be really boring. I say again to the freshmen in their first day of high school, after 4 years, if you leave from high school and you're basically the same person that you were when you came into high school, what a waste of time that was for you. Like, try something out. So in terms of engagement, we're looking for them to come every day, just be their best selves, try something new, take a risk, trust us when we're not doing as well as we need to, work with us to do better. That's what I think it means to be a high schooler. And it gets back to what Scott said in the beginning. This school, especially in the high school for me, this can either be the school where your children go, or it can be their school. I'll run it either way. But if it's their school, if it belongs to them, if it's their voice, their passion, their drive, their initiative, then, I have 403 students in the high school this year. I have 51 faculty members. That configuration, that constellation of human beings will never be in Dexter Southfield again. There'll always be a different group of people. Next year, it won't be those same 453 people. So this year should look and feel a little bit different than next year, a little bit different than last year, because I want those voices, those personalities to really shape what the day looks like.
Thank you, Brian. I'm going to break that proverbial Zoom fourth wall here, and we've got live questions flying in. So this one is a doozy, and I'm going to try and combine it with another one where I think there's a similar theme. So Brian, the question comes in as far as interested in the words of best today, better tomorrow, and how it manifests itself. And I think you touched upon this throughout the day. Especially in the upper school, discussing how the concept of growth through struggle and not paving that path for the students, but really giving them an opportunity to wrestle with that knowledge acquisition and that development of where they're going with it. And how we, in doing that, help children learn to navigate life and learn those important life skills, knowing that life is going to be filled with potholes or uncertainty. So knowing that you are at the culminating years of the Dexter Southfield experience, I'm going to throw that to you, and then Todd and Marlena, if you want to chime in as well, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure, thanks, Scott. I guess I'll say 2 things about that. The first is that the content, chemistry and algebra and physics and English. I was an English teacher for many years. Those things, my teachers have passions for those. That's what brings teachers to the room. It very rarely is what brings kids to the room. Kids come to the classroom because I tell them to go to the classroom, not because they love physics and they love history and they love math. I mean, some of them do, God bless them, but that isn't really why they're there. The content that we teach isn't the star of the show in high school. The 2 things I would say that are the star of the show, and this gets to the idea of best today, better tomorrow. First of all, it's the skills. And we alluded to this earlier when we were talking about cross-divisional work. The skills behind how to learn anything, whether it's algebra, whether it's history, whether it's lines for a play, whether it's a particular run, a line run in a football play, like the ability to learn anything that's important to you is a skill that will follow you for the rest of your life. Because I don't know what this year I teach second year Latin this year. So I don't know what my Latin 2 students are going to be doing in 10 years. Most of them are probably not going to be translating Cicero. Maybe 1 or 2 of them will, God bless. But most of them won't. So it isn't really the Latin that I'm teaching them. It's how to learn Latin. It's how to master anything. It's the discipline. It's the process of learning, because that way, if they become, engineers or hamburger flippers at McDonald's or anything in between, I know those aren't the ends of the spectrum, but whatever they choose to do, they'll know how to learn how to do anything. That's what learning is about. It's the skills behind it. And the other thing that I hope that we do in the high school, which just builds off of the solid work in the lower and the middle school, and I mean that, is we're trying to teach them to be kind. Because anyone can be smart, but not everyone chooses to act with kindness. And if you have all these wonderful human beings, these 403 young adults with, hormones and brains and passions and apathies and fights with parents and girlfriends and boyfriends and no friends, it's really hard to navigate through high school. It's a time in a lot of people's life they wouldn't choose to return to if they had the option. What I hope makes it better, and what I hope they'll carry forward, is the ability to be kind, especially when you're encouraged not to, especially when something happens to you that makes you want not to be kind. I grew up in a time where we didn't have social media, where you had to actually bully people face to face. It took a different level of courage. My students have to navigate a world with social media, with pressures, with college pressures that have never existed before today, and social pressures and family issues, and just being afraid of COVID-19 and everything else it means. If we can try to encourage them through all those stresses, anxieties, pressures, to focus on how to be kind to the people that are in your life and the skills to learn anything, then I think we're setting them up for whatever comes next.
Well, I was really excited with this question because it is basically the entire premise of middle school, is how do we do this, right? And if you think about sort of growth patterns, like physical growth in a student, and you look at a 6th grader and they still look like children, and then you go to the 8th grade and there are kids that are over 6 feet tall, that look like professional athletes, and it's really confusing because they're all still kids. So it is a very varied landscape in the wonderful awkward world of middle school. And it's one that you have to be worried about development, and you have to be worried about challenging students, because they don't just grow physically differently. From an intellectual standpoint, from a learning standpoint, they're all in really different places, and that all sort of gets sorted out in the growth process, which is wonderful and magical. But it takes a few years, and hopefully by the time they're 25, it's all sorted out. But in a middle school classroom, kids are going to need different things. So the system that we have built is one in which there are safety nets such that you will not fall too far. And at the same time, there are other levers we can pull to make the academic demands go up so that you're not coasting. We don't want anybody sort of floating through and getting all A's and having not really used all of their talents. So that's part of Best Today, Better Tomorrow, is that everybody is pushing themselves to do as much as they can and actually work hard. We want everybody working hard. And what that means for you might be different than what it is for your friend or classmate. So the independent school model is a really wonderful one where you have a small group of students, you have a really caring adult who has content knowledge and a knowledge of the developmental process and of learning and how to get kids excited about doing things. So we have really engaging and exciting curriculum and content areas where kids can dive in and build a robot, or go to a cooking class, or make up their own class in the form of a club. So we had a girl that was really excited about knitting. We had a teacher who was really excited about knitting. Now we have a knitting club. These are opportunities for kids to have some direction on their learning. As Dr. Bloomfield says, there are certain subject matters that people don't usually pick up as a club. We don't have a grammar club. We don't have a Latin club yet. But you know,
I would like
these
to run a
things-
middle school grammar club. If I could run a middle school grammar
I
club,
think that would be
great.
outstanding. There's got to be a kid out there. But
Give you
my
a fifth
point
grade
is,
grammar club too.
yeah, that'd be great. But we have these great classes with teachers that are really excited and can bring that material alive, and to make it exciting for kids and to make it not painful, to learn things that can be tedious. So those are the kinds of supports that we put in place. And since we have such small classes and such dedicated faculty who get to know students from a variety of points of view. So, you know, the soccer coach is also the math teacher, is also the advisor. So, you know, that adult knows that child really well and can talk to them about success in different areas and how that can be applied in different areas. So if you're fantastic in math class, but you haven't really mastered your shot from goal, you know, the same person can talk to you about how you worked really hard in math and now it could show on the athletic field, or the other way around. And as Dr. Bloomfield said, we really want them to be good people. And when his students are doing their public speaking and give a presentation to our middle school, there's no one, like no faculty member that the students are going to listen to more than the 18-year-old at the front of the classroom. And when it's, you know, somebody who is really athletically talented, but they're standing there talking about their passion for helping animals, or how they had a relationship with their sibling that was really hard, but they managed to work it out. Or in middle school, they were too perfectionistic, and they realize now that if they had been less perfectionistic, they could have tried more and learned more. So hearing those messages from our oldest students really lifts up our middle school. They see these older kids talking about wonderful topics that are impactful, and they see that kindness that Dr. Bloomfield's talking about, and it helps them grow in that same direction. So at any rate, those are the things we're doing in middle school.
So I think, so for me, I think Best Today, Better Tomorrow is one of my favorite things about Dexter Southfield. And when you think of the 4 to 11-year-olds, you know, it could be that, you know, I spilled my water today and tomorrow I'm not going to spill my water. Or, you know, there's a little pre-K girl who began the year and there was no way she was going to ride the bus. Like, that was not happening. My parents are driving me every day. That is, we bonded one day over the fact that her sneaker was double knotted and she couldn't get it untied. But anyway, so, and then, you know, then she started riding the bus in the morning. And, you know, she came to me and Dr. Alex, I rode the bus in the morning, and of course, full high fives. And now she's riding, then she started riding the bus in the afternoon. And so it's that progression, it's that growth, whether it's riding the bus or learning an instrument, or the project you're working on in woodshop, or the science experiment, or the grammar that we talked about, or the math facts. I think that, you know, students, little people understand if at first you don't succeed, try again. And so that try again is next time it's going to be a little bit better. Next time it's going to be a little bit better. And I love that our students grow up with that idea of, hey, I did my best today. And hey, tomorrow it may be a little bit better. It's sort of like the little engine that could just keep at it. And so, and I think our teachers are the same way. You know, as teachers, we always reflect on the day. And so how did that lesson go? How did that day go? How will I make it different next time I teach it? Or how will I take where the students were today and move them just a little bit further on the next day? And so I think it's for the children on campus. I think it's for the adults on campus. I think it helps to build those habits and those habits of mind. I think it helps to build their resilience. When we talk about, you know, the 21st century skills, like resilience is one of those skills. Coming back the next day and working on it. Those are skills that our students need to know and need to have, whether they are 4 or whether they are 18, because that's what's going to keep moving that ball down the field for them academically and athletically, musically, in all the different realms. So best today, better tomorrow. I think there couldn't be a better school motto.
Thank you, all three of you. just was struck by a common theme also in just the human relationships that cross those divisional lines, not only from our colleagues, but from the student level. And while we certainly feel it's important to right size those experiences, and I've heard Dr. Alex talk about her lower school neighborhood, and then we've talked about that middle through upper progression as it works towards that pre-collegiate vision. I smile as I think back on those moments where you see the passing of those two divisions, and a lower school third grade class lets out a loud cheer as they see that junior or senior who was their summer camp counselor, or that individual who led them around the Museum of Fine Arts. So those relationships, that human component, I think is certainly a unique element of that pre-K through 12 model, and that we do inhabit 136-acre campus together, that these are not siloed communities that exist in fractured moments around Brookline or the greater Boston area. We are all on one cohesive footprint, living in this community together, which is a powerful moment when you see it at play.
Tomorrow at 1:00, when the girls soccer team leaves for their postseason play, and the lower school girls sort of line the driveway with signs and cheers and cheering them off, like, doesn't really get much better than that.
And that's a seeing what's next for them as well, which is great mentorship and role modeling. Dr. Alex, maybe in the spirit of what's next, and we're sort of living the what's next, or the better tomorrow of the modern blooms, the innovative spirit, new opportunities that have been born out throughout the last year. Maybe if you could talk about the innovative advancements, our innovation lab, Todd, the garage, and Brian, the entrepreneurial program, for guests that have not been made aware of these new advancements at Dexter Southfield.
So one of the crowning jewels of our new building, and if you haven't come to see us, please do. I'd love for you to just see our whole environment, but also our brand new building for our 3rd through 5th grade. I'd say one of the crown jewels of the building is the Innovation Lab, where students are in that space with a teacher, and sometimes with their own classroom teacher, applying the skills that they have learned, applying the thinking skills, thinking outside the box. They're given a problem, and then they have to come up with the solution. So the current issue right now is that we are doing a school-wide drive for the Brookline Food Pantry, and it just started. And outside the picture that you saw of the little boy overlooking the Reading and Learning Center, that space is starting to be overtaken by food that is being donated by our families for the Brookline Food Pantry. So the challenge that our 4th grade boys have been given is, how will we move that food from this space to whatever vehicle takes those goods to the Brookline Food Pantry? So the Innovation Lab instructor today proposed that to them, and what are we going to do? How are we going to do that? And so the boys have all sorts of ideas that they now need to sort of workshop a bit, and they need to figure out how they're going to get. I mean, obviously they could lift them, but that's not the point. But how are they going to get those goods from point A to point B so that they can get to the families that need them? And those are the sorts of things that are happening in the STEM lab, the Innovation Lab. Last month, the 5th graders built some haunted houses that had to have certain parameters. They had to have a certain footprint. They had to figure out how to get from they had to have multiple floors, how to get from one floor to the other. They had to figure out how to close a circuit, electronic circuit, so they could have some lights. They had to have some other moving parts I can't remember, but that's the innovation that we are pushing students toward in that space. And then in other spaces, they're doing some hands-on work with maps based on the skills that they've learned in their classroom. They're now creating some things, and also tour maps, or not tour guides of their or tours of their islands, using the skills that they built. And so I think there's that innovation that way. We also, in our 5th grade, have something called Genius Hour, which is a takeoff on the 20% time that I guess birthed the Post-it, and some other, like the 3M does it, and Google does it. A couple other companies do it, where it's a certain amount of time, 20% of the week, that is built, that is all about innovation and thinking about it. And so then we pass the children then to the middle school, where they go and they are doing the next level of growth in the garage in the middle school.
Right. So the garage is aptly named because it started out as a parking garage. So it's the basement of the middle school building, which has been completely transformed into a new learning space. And it is a really wide open room, which was designed primarily for flexibility, so that we could use it from all day long in a variety of different ways, with a variety of different classes. So I was down there today, and students have just finished reading the book, A Separate Piece. It's what was set during World War II, and it's a story about some students at a prep school and how they found a piece away from the rest of the world and started missing that. One of the things in the book is the kids invent some games and play these games, and in an effort to connect with the book in a fun and innovative way, our English teachers have the students creating games for one another, and then we'll have a celebratory day next week as we head into the holiday, where they'll get to play these games and let each other learn the games that they played. There's a whole bunch of other activities that are also happening. And the garage provides a space for the construction of sort of the messy process of building an actual game. But it also provides a large presentation space for kids to look at each other's work and to talk about it and to play the game. So having that space and that flexibility is really fantastic. In our 6th grade, as Marlena brings those students up and they're eager to solve problems, we've introduced some computing and some coding through our science classes. So every student in 6th grade has their own microbit, which is basically a stripped down computer chip with some inputs and outputs and a number of sensors that are built into it. So they can get information from the environment that will impact the code they're written and produce a result. So then they're asked to find a problem on campus and then solve it using the microbit. So our students were really concerned that there wouldn't be enough parking for the football game. So that was one of the problems that they came up with. Another was trying to have a fun game to play when it was too rainy to go outside. So they built these products that solved those answers. So they built a pressure plate that if you drove over it, it caused a counter and would tell you that you now have 200 cars on campus, you only have 6 spots left. They built a stuffed animal that you could toss back and forth and play hot potato. And if it stopped too long, the sensor would indicate that and an alarm would go off. There were a whole bunch of really creative ideas, and they actually built and created these things, and they worked, which was remarkably impressive to me. But it helps them to think about the world in a different way. I can see a problem and be like, oh wow, that's really too bad. We don't have enough parking. How could we ever solve that? But doing something about it is part of that best day, better tomorrow, right? Like we can work on the problem, we can figure out a solution. I can make that solution actionable and actually do something about it. And if you're learning that in 6th grade, you're off to a great start. So those are the kinds of innovative things that we're doing with the space. Like I said, it works all across different genres of classes. So there was a foreign language class, it was a Spanish class, they were celebrating the Day of the Dead. They went down there, they were able to use all the project materials and create a great display that other kids could come and visit. It just, the list goes on and on and on in the garage. And it's just a place where we go to figure out answers to new problems that we've found. So, Dr. Bloomfield, speaking of new problems that we've found, innovating solutions.
Well, thanks. It's very exciting stuff happening in your divisions. Yeah. So I'll be brief. I'll try to be brief. It's at 7:55. I think that the kind of one of the more entrepreneurial ventures that we have is in fact our new entrepreneurship program. We launched it this year. This was an effort to look at some talents and interests that our kids had that didn't fit within a traditional college prep curriculum. So we have a lot of students who are heavily involved in starting their own businesses, creating their own products. We've had students kind of branch out from their work in art to create a line on Etsy. And we recognized that our standard program wasn't meeting their needs. So we pulled together resources. We talked to a number of our alumni and friends of the school, members of our board of trustees, and we launched an entrepreneurship program this year. The program has about 50 kids in it, 9 through 12. There's no age requirement. We're partnering with Babson College. They've been on campus and they've been doing 3 different sessions with our students as self-enclosed module. And then our students are moved forward with their own entrepreneurship programs where they are developing their own ideas, whether they want to introduce and develop a product into the world, whether they want to develop and create a service industry, or whether they want to create a non-for-profit. We've had speakers come and already meet with them on a couple of occasions, people who have invested in entrepreneurship enterprises, people who have started their own businesses, people that support those things. They're working collaboratively in small groups. They're designing and building. And in the end of the year, those in the program will be kind of doing pitches to a large group of people. Think of it as like Shark Tank, but for Dexter Southfield High School students. So this is all on top of a full load of courses and athletics and clubs. This is just another opportunity. And I was really pleased to find out that we had, about 12% of the upper school wanted to be in and participate in this program. So it's a way we can leverage our relationships with friends at the school, with alumni, with trustees. It's a way that we, even in the age of COVID, can view Boston as our classroom and not just be contained, as Dr. Alex said, to the 36 acres on campus. And it's a way to kind of tap into an interest and passion that students had, which previously our academic program wasn't able to hit in exactly the right way. So I'm really pleased with the work that's been done and very excited about the work the kids are doing in it.
Like, I can't think of a better question to end on and to leave people wanting more. Thank you to all of you who have given so generously of your time this evening after a very busy day. I really appreciated the answers, but I sat here just reflecting on how I've continued to learn something new every time I run one of these calls, every time I listen to each of you talk. And circling back to our motto, best today, better tomorrow, is certainly something that we subscribe to as educators and as we continue to shape the future of the institution. So all of these exciting ventures that you have heard about, all these foundational skills, all these partnerships are in a process of iteration and continued growth, and that we're continuing to reflect and refine and shape the future of Dexter Southfield. So with that being said, we look forward to welcoming you to campus if you've yet to join us. If you have joined us on campus, it's our hope that this call really knit together that cohesive 14-year runway and gave you vision of the foundational skills that your child will be partnering with at the lower school. And if you're joining us in the high school, the framework of experiences that have led up to that culminating 4-year runway. And knowing that you have tremendously thoughtful and caring individuals that are thinking about this and are rolling up their sleeves on a daily basis to partner with your children, to partner with you. So again, thank you to all of you on the call who are not visible. We appreciated you taking the time to join us, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Have a great night.